Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 361 of the podcast. 361 of these, not counting the picks and pours episode, the 30-something of those that we've done, 36, I think. Plus, there's been a few half episodes. So we're pretty much over 400 episodes at this point. And you guys are still here, not sick of me yet. So welcome. Thanks for tuning in wherever you may be listening. Live right now on Facebook and YouTube. I am no longer welcome on the X platform, it seems, and I'm not really sure why. I pretty much forgot about that social media platform. Don't spend much time on there anymore, since it changed from Twitter to X, and it has nothing to do with that. It's just, I don't know. I guess at this stage of my life, I just kind of lost interest in that type of social media. It had become a pretty negative space. I don't spend a whole lot of time on TikTok either, but I am on there at MMA on the Rocks. Instagram, probably the easiest place to get a hold of me, that or Facebook, if you choose to do so. Today is Sunday, August 18th. Haven't done a Sunday episode in quite a few weeks now. I've had some good reasons. Was in the emergency room a week ago and was recovering from that. And then I think because we do the Thursday episodes now, I'm a little bit more lax about getting an episode in on Sunday. But I really wanted to get in and talk about this UFC 305 card because it was great. I really enjoyed this card. Up and down. We had some drama with the judging. We had some great finishes. We had some exciting fights that went to decision. We can talk about some of the split decisions here up and down this card. And, we had some referee intervention as well. But let's start with the main event. Dricus du Plessis with, I'd say, a very impressive first title defense against Israel Adesanya, goes to enemy territory. He was wanting to have this fight in Africa and not only compromises, but goes in the complete other direction and goes to where Adesanya is one of the more popular fighters, even though he wasn't cheered when he fought Sean Strickland there. So credit to Dricus for even doing that. It was a close fight, man. I had Dricus just slightly winning the first round, but it was close. Could have gone either way. I had Dricus winning the second clearly. I had Adesanya winning the third clearly. And then Adesanya was doing well in the fourth also, until the big blitz by Dricus towards the end of the round that resulted in him jumping on Izzy's back, getting that submission with a really nice modified grip on the rear naked choke. You guys know that I'm a big fan personally of the modified grip. And Dricus must just have a hell of a squeeze because he didn't even have his elbow tucked all the way behind the back, which is what I always recommend. I always recommend bringing the elbow kind of in line with the shoulder blade, and that's really where you get the most leverage. But if you have a strong squeeze, it doesn't really matter. And he had Izzy in that bad position earlier in the fight, and he said it was even the game plan to get to his back. And he had a series that he was going to go through. And even if Izzy was able to get out of that situation, he had, some steps to go through from there. So part of the game plan. And going into this fight, when we were breaking this thing down on Thursday, what I was saying is that technique-wise, Adesanya is better everywhere. Dricus doesn't have what I would call traditionally good technique. I mean, he's running at Adesanya with these windmill punches that, as a striking coach, I would never teach anybody to throw punches that way. I'd never teach anybody to attack that way, but it works for him. Those blitzes were throwing Adesanya off because Adesanya is a great counter striker, but he's good at counter striking, traditional striking, rudimentary striking. So if you rush him with like, a 1-2-3 low kick, you're going to get countered and put on your ass. But Dricus was countering with, I like the double jab entries, and it seemed risky. But then when you look at it, he was really putting Adesanya off balance and out of position when he was blitzing in. So as much as I want to tell you guys it's not good technique, it was effective. So you can't really argue with it. And it's not like Adesanya didn't get his shots in. He was cracking DDP in this fight. And he even said he was surprised that he didn't go down. DDP's got a chin on him. And I've always said this about Dricus as well, dating back way before he was in title contention. This guy has a gear that he can go into. And I'll go back to, I think it was the Darren Till fight when I noticed it, that this guy can be sucking wind, totally exhausted, and he can shift into that next gear. And that's not something that you can coach into somebody. It's not something that they can learn in the gym. That's something that you're either born with or you're not, right? He has the ability to keep pushing beyond the point of exhaustion. And I've always said that's a quality I want to see in a fighter that I'm coaching over anything else. Give me somebody who's unathletic. I can make them an athlete. Give me somebody who doesn't know how to throw a punch. I could teach him to throw a punch. Give me somebody who can't wrestle. I could teach him to wrestle. I could teach jujitsu. You can teach all those things. You can't teach somebody to push themselves beyond the point of exhaustion. You can't. You can condition them. You can improve their conditioning and make that threshold greater. Make it take longer for them to get to that point of exhaustion. But you cannot coach someone into pushing past that point. And Dricus is able to do that, man. He's always been able to do that. This guy is only 30 years old. His confidence is soaring high right now. He just beat up, what some people would consider the greatest middleweight of all time. And I mean, it's between Adesanya and Anderson Silva at this point. Now, where do you insert Dricus du Plessis into that conversation? Because if you look at some of the best middleweights ever, for me, Rich Franklin's still in that conversation, just because of what he did for the sport. I think he helped introduce a lot of people to MMA back in the early 2000s by showing it wasn't such a savage sport. Here's this guy who was a math teacher, full-time math teacher, and became the UFC champion. He had a great story. He was a great fighter. He was good everywhere, well-rounded, until he ran into a guy named Anderson Silva and just didn't have an answer, couldn't solve that puzzle. Anderson Silva is up there. Robert Whittaker, you have to consider as one of the top middleweights of all time. And of course, Adesanya. And now Dricus has wins over Whittaker and Adesanya, finished both of them. So you have to start to consider that this guy is starting a run that could lead to, greatest in middleweight history. I mean, that's just the fact we're faced with right now. So what's next? They asked him what's next. He said, I don't care who the opponent is. I only care about the end still. Next week, we have a middleweight main event between Jared Cannonier and Kyle Bahalio. So, I think if Cannonier wins, you could definitely put him in there. But, is Cannonier going to have what it takes to deal with this guy at, over 40 years old here? Bahalio, if Bahalio wins, I don't think I don't think you put him in the title shot. He's ranked 12th right now. So I don't think a win over Cannonier is going to put him in there. Um, I guess we could do the rematch with Sean Strickland. That was promised to him, but we've seen promises broken in the past. The UFC could decide they don't want to do it. Alex Pereira was calling out Dricus on social media. He posted a picture of him just sitting in what looked like, I don't know, a YMCA or something, watching watching this fight. He's sitting on like a folding chair, saying he wants to make middleweight one more time. How do you deny that guy? That would be a fun fight. I personally don't care to see Pereira cut back down to middleweight again because he's such a big guy. But if that's what he wants, sure. I think it's a fun fight. I think he poses some interesting problems for Dricus. He's not going to get as stifled with the blitzing. He's not going to be kind of stumbling back as much as Izzy was. He's going to be, standing toe to toe with him. He's probably just as hard to take down and hold down as Izzy is, which, you have to give Adesanya credit for, his takedown defense and his ability to scramble to the cage and get back up. Even at the end, yeah, he got submitted, but you got to remember he was rocked on the feet before that. So it wasn't an issue of his grappling. That's not why he got submitted. He got submitted because he got rocked and then couldn't defend the choke. So it's not like he didn't have the skills. It was kind of similar to Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, the first fight, where Conor got rocked and then he shot in for the takedown. Oh, you're a wrestler now moment. But yeah, interesting landscape in the middleweight division. It's really exciting right now. We have Brendan Allen and Marvin Vettori are supposed to fight each other pretty soon. They're ranked 6th and 7th, and they got into a brawl in like a casino or something last night, it seemed like, where Brendan Allen just ran after Vettori and tried to cheap shot him. I don't know what was going on there or why these guys hate each other so much. Why not just wait until you can do it in the ring? But, what do I know? Then we're also going to have, it looks like Kevin Holland's moving back up to middleweight. He's going to fight Roman Dolidze, who's ranked number 10. That's a fun fight. And you still have Paulo Costa floating around here. And of course, you have Robert Whittaker allegedly fighting Khamzat Chimaev coming up in September. So it's a really exciting time for this middleweight division. It really is. And then Adesanya says he'll be back. Based on this performance, they're definitely not going to put him right back into a title shot, especially now facing back-to-back losses to Strickland and Du Plessis. So, yeah, it's a really exciting time for this middleweight division. And, I can't get over the fact that Dricus, like I said, he doesn't do everything according to the textbook. He doesn't have like outstanding striking, but his striking is effective. He doesn't have outstanding grappling, but it's effective. Even like that lead leg kick he was throwing that he landed to the body and I think almost to the head a couple of times. The way he throws it is very stiff. It's not really proper technique, but it works for him. He's got this kind of stiff posterior chain, right? Where he doesn't seem that flexible. But he just has this bullying, blitzing style that works for him. Obviously, it's gotten him to a world championship and it's gotten him to beat a guy who a lot of people consider one of the greatest middleweights of all time. John Dong joining the broadcast here. He says, how do you think 2016 Yoel Romero would do in the current middleweight division? That's an interesting question. I think Romero, I'd like to say I don't think Romero gets taken down by Dricus, right? I mean, he was an Olympic silver medalist, and he's got outstanding wrestling. But at this point, I think we're a little bit beyond doubting Dricus du Plessis, right? I mean, after the Darren Till fight, it was, yeah, he finished him, but Darren Till's kind of on his way out. After the Derek Brunson fight, yeah, he finished him late in the second round, but he was on his way out. And then Whitaker, some people were saying, oh, well, Whitaker was on his way out. But then Robert Whitaker comes back and has a spectacular performance against Paulo Costa. So it wasn't that. It was DDP beat him, And then the Strickland fight was close. A lot of people out there still saying that Strickland won. And we probably do need to run that one back. But, man, it's hard to deny Dricus du Plessis at this point. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fight win streak in the UFC or in MMA. 8 in a row in the UFC. And the guy's a finisher too. I mean, out of 22 wins, he's only had 2 decision wins. He's got 20 finishes. I think his resume is a little underrated. But man, what a performance. And then there was all the theatrics and the press conferences and stuff, making Adesanya get emotional, things like that. All right, co-main event. This one didn't go the way I thought it would. I thought Steve Erceg would be able to keep Kai Kara-France on the outside and use that technical striking to either get a knockout or, outpoint him in a decision. But Kai Kara-France, a little flustered with the range of Steve Erceg in the beginning. But then, much like Dricus du Plessis did in the main event, he blitzed him and wound up getting a big knockout. He's got some power. A lot of finishes does Kai Kara-France have in a division that doesn't have a lot of knockouts. Out of his 25 wins, he's got 12 wins by knockout. So he was able to snap a bad losing streak, lost 2 in a row. Granted, he's fighting at the highest level, lost in the title fight to Brandon Moreno, and then lost his comeback fight to Amir Albazi by split decision. So this one had to feel good, getting in there and getting a big knockout win, from New Zealand, but same part of the world. So really a hometown crowd for him. So that was an impressive performance as well. Dan Hooker and Mateusz Gamrot, this got fight of the night, and I can't argue with that. This was a fantastic fight. I think it was close, man. I mean, we had some bad decisions on this card. I don't think it was one of them. I think it was one of those things where it's like, what do you value? Do you value the strikes? Do you value the takedowns? And that's going to affect how you scored this one. I think Gamrot clearly won the first round, and I thought that was the easiest round to score. I thought Dan Hooker slightly won the second round, and then I thought the third round was close. So, if you gave 1 and 2 to Gamrot, I'm not really going to argue with you. And then if you gave 2 and 3 to Dan Hooker, I'm not really going to argue with you. So it was a close one. Did he get maybe a little bit of a hometown gift? Maybe. He did have Gamrot rocked a couple of times, but he took a lot of damage himself. I mean, he had cuts above and below both eyes. So Gamrot striking looked pretty clean in there. And then obviously we know he can wrestle with the best of them. Rosenstrike and Tai Tuivasa, I was happy with this one because I do not have to do the shoey that was dared to me on Thursday evening. So once the first round was over, I didn't really care how this one went, but it went pretty much how I expected it to go. I mean, Rosenstrike has like 100 kickboxing fights, and he engaged in the brawling a little bit with Tuivasa, but I think he quickly put himself in check every time and went back to his game plan and was working the strategic striking. And we had to have a judge be removed because he somehow scored this fight 30-27 for Tai Tuivasa. I don't know what the fuck this guy was watching, but I was glad to hear that they had him removed from the event, and they should probably give him a pretty heavy suspension, have him go back to judging, the local amateur fights and stuff like that. So in any case, Mark Vela says, Bill must be thanking his lucky stars that 2 judges robbed Tai. Shuey avoided. Not true, Mark, because the bet was I would only have to do the Shuey if Tai won by first round KO. If you go back and watch the episode, you'll remember that. And I had Matt the Mechanic even scouted out that Australian beer you were telling us about. And I know he's like a sneakerhead, so he probably had, some kind of fancy sneaker picked out that we were going to be drinking out of. And yeah, I'm glad that Tuivasa didn't get that first round knockout, because I don't want to drink beer out of a shoe. I mean, I'm getting to the age now where I don't even enjoy drinking beer as much as I used to. I mean, I enjoy the act of drinking it, but then it makes me feel so bloated and lethargic that, you know, 1 or 2 beers is pretty much where I got to draw the line. Sticking to the brown liquor for the most part. Today, I'm just drinking some H2O, trying to stay hydrated. It's still hot here in Florida. We're back to school, but it's still summertime weather, probably until the beginning of October, maybe mid-October. But yeah, I mean, Rosenstrike won the fight. I mean, he outpointed Tuivasa. Tuivasa was trying to pressure in, trying to bait Rosenstrike into a brawl, and it almost worked a couple of times, but ultimately, Rosenstrike just stuck to the game plan and outpointed him. Let's talk about Carlos Prates knocking out Jingliang Li in the second round. I mean, damn near finished him in the first round. This guy, man, what a striker this guy is. I mean, his nickname is the Nightmare. That's fitting. 20 wins, 15 by knockout. Also has 3 submissions. And we haven't really seen his grappling in the UFC yet. I mean, the guy's from Sao Paulo. He trains with the Fighting Nerds out there. So we know he's got grappling, but his Muay Thai technique is outstanding. I mean, I like the way he was manipulating with the lead leg. He was using that lead leg to control the distance with Jingliang Li. He wasn't chasing the knockout. In fact, it seemed almost effortless when he got it, and he knocked Jingliang Li out cold. So this guy is going to be a problem in the welterweight division. And I think there's a lot of fun matchups for him. So Jingliang Li was not ranked, but we got to get Prates in the rankings now. And if you look at the bottom of the rankings, let's look at 10 through 15. Jeff Neal, that'd be a fun fight. Joaquin Buckley, really fun fight. Imagine seeing those 2 strike. That would be awesome. Neil Magny is fighting next week, so we'll see what happens there. Vicente Luque, another fun fight. Michael Venom Page. I wouldn't mind seeing that Muay Thai style of Carlos Prates against that, kind of point fighting karate style, that blitzing style of Michael Venom Page. That would be interesting. And John Dong commented that earlier, so I'll throw that comment up here. Prates is good. Him versus MVP would be crazy. Yeah, I agree. MVP has a fight on the books right now, I believe. And then number 15 is Kevin Holland, but Kevin Holland, it seems, is going back to middleweight, at least for one fight. He's going to be fighting Roman Dolidze, as I said earlier. But yeah, I was very impressed with Pratis. Very impressed. Little bit of drama with the refereeing here. Now, I don't think the referee did anything wrong, but Junior Tafa did. So Walter Walker, who apparently is Johnny Walker's brother, even though this guy is from Moscow or something, it looks nothing like Johnny Walker. I guess they had the same dad. Dad's a world traveler, as they say. Locks up a heel hook towards the end of the first round and starts rolling with it. Junior Tafa screams out in pain, audibly. You could hear it. So referee Steve Percival says that's a verbal submission. And it is. You know, I'm sure you guys are going to hear Big John McCarthy talk about it this week. He was talking about it last week, actually, on his Weighing In podcast, that if you scream out in pain, that's a verbal tap. You're saying that something is wrong and you can't continue. So you got to either suck it up, bite your lip, or, you know, accept the results here. And that's what Junior Tafa showing really poor sportsmanship, gets in Walker's face after the fact and then goes and smacks him in the face, you know, while he's being held back by security. That was, you know, that was a shitty move. I didn't like seeing that. That was really poor sportsmanship. You should understand the rules, and, you know, he should know that if you scream out in pain, that's a verbal submission. You know, every fighter should know that. So I didn't like seeing that. And they were talking about Walker possibly fighting Tafa's brother in his next fight. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, you can't fault the referee there, and you can't fault Walker. But man, this guy's trouble. He's 6'6", and, you know, he can strike, he can grapple. Only got 13 fights, but 26 years old. He's going to be a problem in this heavyweight division. You don't have a lot of guys in this heavyweight division who can set up a heel hook like that. All right, Ricardo Ramos got the win over Josh Coulibaugh, split decision. How did you guys score that one? That one was that was another close one, another close split decision. I wasn't paying too close attention, like not close enough to score it. I was watching the fight, and when I saw the decision, I wasn't surprised or anything, but, you know, Coulibaugh looked surprised. He was definitely in there. But let me know how you guys scored that one in the comments, and maybe I need to go back, give it a second look. Here's a fight that I thought was outstanding. Casey O'Neill and Luana Santos. And Casey O'Neill, you got to give her the most improved award on this card, because her grappling is like night and day from her last fight. I mean, Luana Santos, very competent on the ground, got a lot of submission wins under her belt. And Casey O'Neill was controlling the grappling exchanges. You know, we knew she was going to have probably cleaner striking going into this, and that was going to be her path to victory. I did not anticipate her, you know, getting on the back of Luana Santos and nearly submitting her. I mean, that rear naked choke at the end of the third round was actually pretty close. I mean, she was across the jaw. Here was the hilarious part to me. She goes for the rear naked choke, goes across the chin, and instead of trying to adjust her grip, she starts kicking Luana Santos with her heel. And to me, from the angle of the camera, it looked like she was kicking her square in the vagina. So I don't know what, I mean, I guess she wasn't. I guess she was kicking her on the inside of the thigh, but I don't know exactly what she was trying to do there. Maybe she was trying to distract Santos so she could, you know, slip that grip in. But yeah, man, she was just tenderizing that labia with her heel. But I guess Santos didn't mind. You know, she must like it rough, because she got up at the end of the fight and hugged Casey O'Neill right away. Casey O'Neill getting her hand raised, unanimous decision there. Judges got that one right. And then not a whole lot else I want to get into here. Jack Jenkins, TKOs Herbert Burns, the beginning of the third round. Tom Nolan, unanimous decision over Alex Reyes. Kenan Song beat the absolute shit out of Ricky Glenn. I mean, this fight probably could have been stopped at some point. Ricky Glenn had a huge hematoma on the right side of his head. His face was all cut up. He was badly battered. I think it's reasonable to stop a fight from one of those bad hematomas because I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable with it. When you have that much swelling that close to the brain, that's concerning to me. I feel like, they need to get medical treatment as soon as possible when something like that happens. We've only seen a handful of bad ones. Of course, Joanna Jędrzejczyk comes to mind. If you guys remember a fighter by the name of Mark Hominick, he had really bad hematomas. Do a Google image of Mark Hominick in the WEC. I think he was fighting Jose Aldo when that happened. That was one of the worst hematomas I've ever seen. But yeah, pretty easy one to score there. Kenan Song didn't have a scratch on him at the end of that fight. And then let's see. Jesus Santos Aguilar in a catchweight fight against Stuart Nickel. I'm not sure who missed weight there, but Aguilar getting the guillotine finish 2 minutes, 39 seconds into round number 1. Matt the Mechanic says he had a bad night with his bets, but it was an exciting card. I agree. That card was worth dropping a couple of bucks on. If all you lost is $5 and you get to enjoy that card. Mark Fellows wants to know what's the rule on Vaseline use on hematomas, not labias. Yeah, I don't believe you're allowed to lubricate the labia pre-fight. I'm pretty sure that's in the unified rules. I don't know what Vaseline would do for a hematoma. Most corners have the cold steel where but that helps little swelling things. Like that'll stop your eye from swelling shut. If you got dings there, but I don't think it's going to do much for a hematoma that big. I think that thing, it needs to be drained by a medical professional. That's not something like a corner man or a cut man should be dealing with. It's not like, what was it? In Rocky 2 when Rocky tells Mick to cut him. So his eye drained so he could see. Luckily we weren't in one of those situations, but yeah, this was a fantastic card. I really enjoyed it. I know there was a lot of grappling on this weekend, ADCC and the Craig Jones. I only caught a handful of it. I saw Mackenzie Dern's match against I forget the girl's name, Fifi Ora or something, whatever it is. But Mackenzie Dern got submitted there. The girl hit a nice head and arm throw on her too. Very nice. And then chained her submissions together really well. But yeah, fun night of fights for sure. Next week, as I mentioned, we got Jared Cannonier and Kyle Bahario. We'll go into a deeper dive on this on Thursday night's episode, but I just want to take a quick little preview here. I like this main event, man. We're really going to see if Bahario is the real deal here. Jared Cannonier, even though he's 40 years old, he's still dangerous. But Bahario coming off an impressive victory over Paul Craig. He's submitted Mikhail Olajanchik. And I feel like this kid is just starting to find his stride. I almost wish they built him up a little slower, because I think he really could have built his confidence up gotten a few more finishes on some lower level fighters. Now he's getting thrown to the wolves with Jared Cannonier here. Not a huge difference in experience, really, but it's the quality of experience. So Jared Cannonier 17-7, Bahalio 16-1, but most of Cannonier's experience is coming in the UFC over 3 different weight classes, and he's fought in main events before. So that's the experience that's going to matter. Angela Hill and Tabitha Ricci in the co-main event. That's all right. That's an okay fight. The undefeated Michael Morales, 16-0, going in against Neil Magny. Neil Magny is, I don't want to call him a gatekeeper, but, that's kind of the role he's fallen into. But that's a tough gate to get through. Edmund Shabazian and Gerald Mearshart. Shabazian, one of these kids, another one, who should have been brought up a little slower. He was an outstanding talent, and at the time he came into the UFC, Ronda Rousey was still hot, and they had the same coaches, and I think Ronda pulled some strings to get him kind of pushed along, but I think ultimately it hurt him to move along that quickly. Ray Longo fighter Dennis Bazookia, and Danny Silva. That should be a fun fight. And Slava Claus coming back. Vyacheslav Borshachev is fighting James Lontop. So, fun little fight night. I love this main event. So I'm tuning in for that alone. And then everything else, if there's some good fights beneath that, great. All right. Gonna keep it a pretty quick episode here. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I did. I went to the movies yesterday. One of my daughter's favorite movies is Coraline, which is it was a movie written by an author named Neil Gaiman, and it's a very dark movie. I mean, it is kind of a children's movie. It was Dakota Fanning did the voice of Coraline, so it's kind of for kids, but very dark. And dark in the way that, like, the Willy Wonka movies were dark. But it was the 15-year anniversary of Coraline's release, so they were showing it at the local movie theater here in 3D. So took my daughter to go see that. She was excited for that because she loves that movie. She loves going to the movies. And yeah, we had a good time. My wife fell asleep. Buying a ticket for my wife at the movies is basically just paying for her to take a nap, because the movie theaters near us have the big recliners, and we always bring a blanket. So yeah, expensive nap for my wife, but my daughter had a good time. Mark Fellows wants to know if Coraline is better than Deadpool Wolverine. I have not seen that movie yet. I don't know if I'll have a chance to see it in the theater, just because it's rated R, and I don't go to those types of movies. I haven't gone to the movies for myself in probably 5 years, which, there's been a bunch of movies that I wanted to see in the theater, but, at this stage, like, it's not worth getting a babysitter to go to the movies, because, like I said, my wife will fall asleep. So I'll just be paying, twice the price to watch the movie by myself, pretty much. And I'll also be paying for a babysitter. So it doesn't make economic sense. I don't really subscribe to Bidenomics, as we call it here in the States. So I don't want to go to the movies by myself, pay for babysitter and all that. So I haven't seen Deadpool Wolverine, but I heard it's good. I mean, I'm not a big superhero movie guy, but I have enjoyed the previous Deadpool movies. They're very witty and violent and gory, but my daughter's only 6, so can't bring her to that. John Dong wants to know, do you like horror movies in general? I love horror movies. Horror and comedy films are pretty much all I watch. And I love old school horror movies. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is probably my favorite of all time. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Um, yeah, definitely love horror movies. My daughter loves horror movies as well. She started watching pretty dark movies at a young age. You know, she really likes like Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice and kind of playfully dark movies. We watched the Goosebumps series on Disney Plus, and she's really into that. Am I looking for horror movie recommendations? Sure. Yeah, if there's anything streaming, I can't make it to the movies anytime soon, but yeah, if there's something streaming that's a good horror movie, I'm all about it. I haven't seen anything new in a while. Um, I'm kind of boring when it comes to watching movies. I just kind of put them on at night to unwind, and I usually will put on something that I've seen before so I can just kind of half pay attention to it. So I watch a lot of like 90s and early 2000s comedy movies. Um, just to kind of have on in the background while I edit videos or get some work done in the evening time. But yeah, if there's a good horror movie on, I'm always down for that. So yeah, send me some recommendations. I see them in the comments here. So if you're looking for, you want to check out John Dong's horror movie recommendations, check out the YouTube comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, turn on notifications so you catch the show live so we can have more engagement like this. I'll be back on Thursday with Matt the Mechanic to preview this upcoming UFC. I guess it's at the Apex. I already closed the thing. But Jared Cannonier and Cal Bahalio fight night next week, whatever, UFC, Vegas, whatever. I'm assuming it's in Vegas. So yeah, thanks for the horror movie recommendations, John. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll talk to you all on Thursday. Until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.